We're in the mountain paradise called the Pyrenees, and on the Orquette d'Ancison, on the easier section where the gradient goes down to about 5%. Simon Clark at the front from the 40-man breakaway that went away today. He's about to be caught, it seems, by Matteo Trentin. Birthday boy Clark, 33 today, also being chased by this group, including Britain's Simon Yates, the Vuelta a España winner. Oh, and we've had problems behind. Problems for Age de Zella Mondiale and Mikel Cherel. Well, they can be thankful that it's not Romain Bardet, who's already had a mechanical problem or two today. But Age de Zella Mondiale losing one man back in the peloton, who are travelling at 6 minutes and 14 seconds. Still led by Luke Rowe at the moment, which tells you something about the rhythm at which they're riding down.
Well, to a degree, I was about to say exactly the same thing, although he is a very strong climber. You know, despite being a big classics rider, he's a bit like Dylan van Baarle, really, isn't he, who won a stage at the Criterium du Dauphiné up the mountains recently. So he is capable of whistling a group down, but you're right, Rob. You know, if it was going to be a real GC day, it would be a much smaller group by now. 6 kilometres, or just under, for our leading riders. 6 minutes down the road to the rest of the group, so they're probably 7-8 kilometres still to go for them, but it doesn't look like we're going to get any major attacks, unfortunately, today, especially when you consider what Tom Southern said to Alberto in the car. Going to be calm.
Not a GC day, and that's what it looks like is happening at the moment. Simon Clark is out there. And just to retouch on a story that we brought you earlier on, we had news of an abandon for Rowan Dennis, but we still have no news as to why he has abandoned the Tour de France yet. A story that we will follow as it develops throughout the day. Another abandon today was for Giacomo Nizzolo, the sprinter from Dimension Data, who was clearly injured. We're getting towards the border now. A lot of more vamos, vamos. The Spanish fans are here, the Basques and the Catalans. And Nicolas Roche, who's won over the border a few times. Simon Yates, who won the whole race over the border last year, are at the front. Both looking for their maiden success in the Tour de France. In fact, everybody in this group is. Gregor Mühlberger there as well. And of course, for Age de Zella Mondiale, the only man who's done it before here, Tony Galopin, who signed a new contract actually to stay for 2 more years at Age de Zella Mondiale. And this group seem to have stopped attacking each other for the moment.
Well, yeah, it's been interesting, hasn't it? Simon Yates has put in a couple of big attacks, but the riders that are with him now have been able to respond to them, so he might not be having it all his own way today. As I said before, it can be a very different beast trying to go hard on a climb from a breakaway versus being in the bunch behind when the tempo is more constant and generally higher. But it might also be that Simon Yates is not at 100%. In fact, we're almost certain he won't be at 100%. After going for the Giro d'Italia, he wasn't actually 100% even there, really, was he? But perhaps not the rider that we might expect from last year's Vuelta or last year's Giro d'Italia, but nevertheless, he still has got the chance of a stage win today, but he'd want to get rid of the rest of those riders, and especially Trentin, before they go over the top.
2 times winner of a stage at the Tour de France, 5 years ago, his last one. He's done it in the Giro as well. He is a highly experienced rider. Here's another of those riders who keeps getting better, Andrea Pasqualon, dropping back to the peloton, however. And it's now in Clark's and Trentin's interest to ride together for whatever they can here, because all the climbing is almost done. Just 500 metres more to go. Just under 5 kilometres remaining, and then it's a very long descent. It's going to be a fast finishing stage, this. And the last 30 k's are downhill. Oh, hello, company. Pello Bilbao Lopez and Max Schachmann. German national champion, hot on the wheel of the Basque rider from Astana. Oh, and they can see them up the front now. So what do I do here, boss?
Wow, it's going to be so intriguing over the top of this one, isn't it? Because as we mentioned before, it's such a long descent where you can chase back on to a rider. It's not as though you're just going to be freewheeling all the way down to the finish line here in Bagnères de Bigorre. There'll be some chasing that can be done if the gaps are reasonably small, and anything less than a minute, I would say, is closable if a small group starts working together against a lone leader.
No, Trentin powering on ahead, and the gradient from now on is pretty steady. It's not nice, but it's pretty steady. Less hairpins as well. Look at this long, very narrow road. Always psychologically seems harder when it's a straight
Oh,
road.
it does, doesn't it? Yeah. The worst ones are those big main roads that are really steep but just don't look like anything when you're riding up. Then you feel like just stuck in mud.
I mean, that's the feeling for a kicker like me. Is it the same in a
It's
professional
exactly
race?
the same. Yeah, there's just when you go do on a big, wide open, straight road.
So it's Matteo Trentin. The added factor as Pello Bilbao attacks now is that everybody can see each other, despite the gaps. That gap at 6 minutes 18, as we're still waiting for El Condor, Nairo Quintana, to make an appearance in the mountains. It will not be today, I'm sure. As we've heard, the GC day probably going to be a calm one. Wait to the weekends, though, as Serge Pauwels is trying to make his way back. This is a brilliant fight we're seeing, and with only 4 kilometres to go to the top, if you're not a great sprinter, you really have to put some time into somebody with a big attack here.
Well, you do, especially somebody like Matteo Trentin, who out-sprinted both Wout van Aert and Mathieu van der Poel to take that European Championships last week. He's another one of those unique breed, really, of riders that are able to sprint and also get up mountains.
Very special rider. Latest acceleration behind, putting Pauwels in problems. And it's Simon Yates who launches his move. Just as we're asking the question, Gregor Mühlberger, 3 times a winner in his career so far, the Austrian. GC winner at the Upper Tour of Austria. But last year, so good in the Bink Bank Tour, as the peloton are reaching that point where they can rest a little. And again, rest in inverted commas. Just a 5% gradient as they're halfway up the climb. 6 minutes, 27 seconds behind. And all as predicted. Clark dropped. Doesn't look like, for now, being a happy birthday to him. But remember, long way down on the descent. Things can still happen over the top of this climb. Nicholas Roach in the red, the Irishman. 34 just behind him was Matthias Frank, the Swiss rider. It's Simon Yates, the Lancastrian, winner of the Vuelta a España. It's his brother who's trying to win the Tour de France this year. This is his chance for glory before surely then he settles in to try and return the favour that Adam helped him out to win the Vuelta with.
Well, Hansgrohe are in a great situation, aren't they, with Mühlberger there on the wheel of Simon Yates and not looking like he's about to drop it anytime soon, but also with Schachmann behind, a very fast finisher himself. He'll be able to sit on down the other side if those two are still away going over the top of this climb, whereas the likes of Trentin won't be able to if they want to chase things back down and actually go for the stage win. So that could be another interesting dynamic over the top. And
Schachmann knows what he's doing in mountain stages of Grand Tours, doesn't he? Yeah. He won one when he was a neo-pro last year at Quick-Step.
Uphill finish as well, wasn't it?
That was a mighty win. And it was the day that it all started to go wrong for the man on the left, Simon Yates. The day of the first crack. So 20 seconds. 20 seconds to the group that you're just about seeing past this 3 kilometres to go to the summit marker. Nicholas Roach is among them. 2-time Irish champion. 2-time winner of a stage of the Vuelta a España. Of course, with his father's relationship with this race, with the fact that he was born on the outskirts of Paris. He rode a long time as a big hope for the next big French thing when he was at Agir des Ailes Mondial, the Irishman. He would love to take a Tour de France stage win. But at the moment, only Mühlberger can hold Simon Yates. This group will be feeling all right, won't they? Because they're still not out of it. Just 13 seconds. Yes, Yates is performing very well, but he hasn't snapped the elastic yet.
Not quite. Not quite. I am wondering whether he's about to, though. Looking at the face of Mühlberger on his wheel, he did look like he was starting to feel the pace that Simon Yates is setting there at the front. But that group behind, you're right. As long as they stay calm, don't go too far into the red, just push it over the top and make sure it's not more than 30 or 40 seconds. They're still in with a chance, and they'll know that, and that's what their sports directors will be saying too.
33 k's to go, and well, Yates flicks the elbow and expects Mühlberger to come through for a turn. First Basque Ikurriña we've seen. The regional flag. In fact, there's 2 of them on the left-hand side. That particular flag belongs to an Athletic Bilbao supporter. Pello Bilbao still in this particular group, just a few metres behind. Already had to make a big effort to get back on the first time he was dropped. Maybe just illustrating Sean Kelly's point about having come out the Giro d'Italia, maybe struggling a little in the Tour de France. Matteo Trentin is still in the mix here, and I guess, Dan, that it's important for him to try and hold on to this group now.
Yeah, I think he probably will be able to, despite the fact he's been out there for quite some time. 2.5 Ks to the top now, so they're 3/4 of the way up this final climb of the day. He's not showing any signs of being about to blow up, is he? They've only just caught him, so I think he should be able to sit on here, given that the gradients aren't quite as severe as they were further on down the climb. I think Simon Yates there would have been looking at the face there of Mühlberger as he went past it to see how he's feeling. I think he still needs to try and go it alone over the top of this climb.
And he has 2 kilometres to make the difference, to snap that elastic. And remember, why not give it all, because he has his teammate Trentin hanging on. And yes, they're wearing different jerseys. It's easy to forget sometimes they're in the same team. But Yates and Trentin both having their opportunity today. This is Yates' 4th tour, by the way, now. 26 years of age, as Pello Bilbao is making it back on again. Oh, what a watch this is. What a watch this is. Another danger man. And that changes the dynamics of the group again.
Well, it might slow them down. In fact, I think Yates has sensed the fact that it might slow them down and has decided to go again.
Well, on the left-hand side, we have Matthias Frank. Yates has gone again. He doesn't want Bilbao involved here. But look at Mühlberger as we get our first silly runner of the tour. Mühlberger showing a fantastic ability to just suffer here. Bora Hansgrohe are having the season of their existence to now. They cannot stop winning. And Mühlberger is giving them another opportunity today, and they're in a very similar situation to Mitchelton Scott. They've got their faster rider behind in Max Schachmann, Trentin there for Mitchelton Scott, and they've got their best climbers up the road.
And from that point of view, yeah, you're right, I did mistake the fact that they were from the same team, Trentin and Simon Yates, before. With 2 riders sat on out of this group of 6, it's hard to see them chasing back onto the front group, because they'll be getting upset with those that aren't working behind.
All of those accelerations at the front of the Tour de France has grown the advantage. Nicolas Roche thinks it's time to go. 32 seconds means he might be out of the game unless he moves now. Bora Hansgrohe with Schachmann behind. Mitchelton Scott with Trentin behind. 2 with teammates up the road, and they are making CCC and Serge Pals, their Belgian rider, try and close the gap. The question is, what are Agir de Montel going to do?
Well, they'll have no choice over the top but to do the chasing. Well, a French team at the Tour de France, I mean, they would have liked to have got at least one rider, of course, up there with that leading group of 3. But these attacks aren't really doing them much good behind. We've got Matthias Frank just about to go again. I think they just need to set a decent tempo really now and keep that gap down as low as possible over the top.
Is that one of the 2 riders here saying that they're going to sacrifice their own chances and could really commit for the other?
Could well be, yeah. Could well be.
In that case, it's Frank who has to do it in the mountains, surely for Galopin, who's a little bit faster towards the end. Tim Wellens remains the king of the mountains. Oh, what a tour he's having.
Slightly surprising not to see Tish Benoit manage to stick with the group behind these 2. Last year, of course, he's been out there in the GC in a Grand Tour before, in the Tour de France in recent years. Decent climber, obviously a very good classics rider as well. I was expecting him to be one of the riders that was able to stick within, well, 30 seconds, maybe a minute of the leading riders over the top of this group, but obviously not feeling 100% today.
And as we were talking about with Julien Alaphilippe earlier on, very similar preparation, a lot of time spent at altitude in the new in-fashion destination of Sierra Nevada. Benoit up there as Pello Bilbao cannot be discounted. Well, this man's going to be moving teams next winter, we know that. He's had a fantastic spring so far, and he's within touching distance. Richie Porte being kept close as the peloton approaches the second half of the climb. But all the top riders flying to the top. A group of 2 of them doing the business at the moment. Simon Yates up there with Gregor Mühlberger. 36 seconds, the gap's growing. Still not a huge amount, though, with all the descending still to come. One mistake, somebody really forcing behind, things can change. 600 metres to go to the top of the climb. And we saw this climb used in the Route d'Occitanie the other week. And it's going to be the descent now all the way down to Bagnères de Bigorre. Well, there is some history between Toulouse and Bagnères de Bigorre. 1952, the first time the two cities were connected. It was Raphael Gemignani who won, a very famous name, whereas in 2008 it was a disgraced name in Ricardo Rico. Last seen selling ice cream in Tenerife.
I was teammates with Gemignani's son once upon a time.
Well, that is a claim to fame. You're not just Daniel Lloyd.
Yes.
You got another claim to fame. So Yates, 300 metres from the top. He has Mühlberger on his wheel. And Mühlberger, hanging on so well, has really put himself in the frame here. Bora Hansgrohe and Mitchelton Scott are both fantastically placed. They've got their two fast men. You'd say in terms of pure talent, Mitchelton Scott are the best placed team because they've got the best climber in the group, a Grand Tour winner, and they've also got the fastest sprinter behind. But we know it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, well, Schachmann's really fast at the finish, isn't he? Especially after a hard day in the saddle. So I think it could be quite a close sprint between those two. But lots of racing to go over the top of this climb, of course. It might not, it could come back together and it might not end up in a sprint because you'll get more attacks coming in towards the finish from the riders who haven't got a sprint at the end. And they might be able to chip off. And if the others look at each other, all sorts of scenarios can play out.
Thibaut Pinot was first over the top when Dan Martin won the stage to Bagnères de Bigorre. It is now Simon Yates who leads them over. Pello Bilbao is more than in the game here. He's on the wheel almost now of Gregor Mühlberger as this gap grows. It's getting north almost to a minute now, 50 seconds with Powell's in the orange. It's Nicholas Roach, the Irishman, in the red. We have the German champion Schachmann in his national colours. The two riders in the brown, blue and white for Agir de Sela Mondial are the Swiss rider Frank and his French teammate Galopin, recently signed a new contract. And it's a newspaper for the European champion to keep his chest nice and dry on the way down for Matteo Trentin, the Italian. This is the Spaniard, the Basque rider Pello Bilbao. Fluent speaker of the Basque language, often seen tweeting and talking on all various forms of media in it. And it's a 51-second gap as they go over the top and start the long descent into the finish. There's one little bit more of a launch pad on the way down here. It comes in the first fifth of the descent. We will see it pretty soon. Can Lopez get back onto the wheels before it happens? You can see narrow roads, twisty roads on the way down. Risks need to be taken, but those risks need to be calculated and pulled off properly. You need the right technique. You need that stroke of luck. Everything required to win a Grand Tour stage. 29 kilometres to go. The Tour de France has come alive. It's going to be a day to remember. But the person who's going to take the biggest prize, we're yet to find out who it is. It's all to play for in the Pyrenees. Headwind on the descent for now, as we're on the way to Bagnères de Bigorre.
dizemos não ao racismo.
Nein zum Rassismus.
Nej till rasism.
Non au racisme.
Nej till rasism.
No al racismo.
One by one, riders peeling off the back of the peloton. It's been a relatively easy day, though, in the yellow jersey group, certainly as far as mountain days go in the Pyrenees. We're approaching the final 25 kilometres, and this is the final bit of climbing that the riders will have to do. The three riders leading the race on a little lip, just a section into the descent. A 30 kilometres long descent to Bagnères de Bigorre. The last winner in Bagnères de Bigorre was Daniel Martin in 2013. And we have Payol Bilbao, the Basque rider, in the blue. Behind him, Simon Yates, the Englishman, in the black and yellow. And Gregor Mühlberger from Austria. We have Ireland's Sean Kelly back alongside us in the commentary box. Dan Lloyd's still here as well. Sean, you've been watching the stage unfold. It's been an absolute cracker, hasn't it?
Yes, it has been a good battle here for the stage victory out in front of the breakaway, and yeah, we can see there just the ones you would pick from the breakaway before we got to this point. You know, they're up there in the front. Although Mühlberger maybe a one that surprised that he's lasting with Yates here, and Payol Bilbao seems to be getting back into it, but we can see the group behind. I thought they would pull back this advantage. 105 at the moment is going to be an interesting one, but the three are working together, and yeah, will Yates continue on to work because he has a teammate back there behind, so still it could change a lot here with 25 kilometres out, and yeah, this group is growing to be a bigger one, the chasing group.
Dylan Teuns has returned to the group behind as well. Already a winner of a stage at this Tour de France. 105 then in that group, and I suppose the interesting political dynamic behind Sean is who rides when you can ride on this descent, because we have a couple of riders there who have teammates behind, and very fast teammates in case it comes back. We're talking Simon Yates, who has Matteo Trentin, on paper the fastest man in the group, and also at the front Gregor Mühlberger, who has Max Schachmann, and as Dan was saying, he's certainly no slouch to the end. It's a bit of a conundrum, this one.
Yes, it is, and yeah, it's a complicated one for the riders here in front, especially for Yates here. You know, do you continue on pushing on here because, yeah, does he feel that he is as good as the other ones in the sprint? I'm not sure on that, but the riders, they know each other because they race so much together all season and in the past season, so they should know each other very well. But yeah, it's an interesting one here with this chasing group, but still it's not coming back at all. 107 at the moment as we go to 24 kilometres to go, so it looks like that they're pushing on quite strong out front. But again, this chasing group, a lot of the riders got dropped a bit, so you know, how much have they got left in the tank? The guys should be doing the chasing. Notably the AG2R riders, they were struggling, I think, to stay in contact with that group on the climb.
8:05 back to the peloton. Do you think it's going to be quite a welcome, easier day for these guys with a time trial tomorrow?
Yes, I think the moment that break got away and slowly pulled out that advantage, you would always say that nobody wanted to make any extra effort today. They wait for the time trial and see what they can do, and you know, look at the general classification tomorrow. There was a lot of talk about Romain Bardet, would he attack, and yeah, it's highly unlikely that he would do that. So I think that everybody was just holding on to the time trial tomorrow and see at the end of the day where you sit. And there's, I think, a lot better opportunities maybe to attack other days in the mountains, because with this one 30 kilometres to finish, even if you take 30 or 40 seconds on the climb, you know, there's always going to be some of the GC men with teammates there, and they're going to just chase it down. We see Jan Martin did that last year on an occasion or maybe more, and I think it was a mistake because he gained nothing at the end of the day. And yeah, it's all about conserving for the time trial tomorrow.
The top riders know how to conserve. Those in the chasing group don't know how to close it down at the moment. 1:06. We're getting a little bit more news on the Rowan Dennis situation. It's come from our colleague in the US media, Kaylee Fretz. He says that there's no formal team statement yet from Bahrain Marina, but Dennis stopped at the feed zone, came back in a team car and didn't talk to reporters. A picture has since emerged of him walking around the team buses, so at least we know he's safe and well. One of the two riders to abandon the Tour de France today. Just over a minute then. Bilbao at the front. And what a Giro d'Italia he had with those two-stage wins. Mühlberger is the man here. All right, Dan Lloyd, who's the fastest finisher out of these three?
Well, I mean, I would have Bilbao and Yates as almost level pegging. In fact, I'd probably put Yates slightly above. Obviously, he's got that track background, hasn't he? Points world champion in the past. Depends how much of his speed he's lost over the years since he's turned himself into a Grand Tour contender and winner at the Vuelta last year. Just been looking at Mühlberger's 3 wins. They were always solo, only by a second or 3 seconds at a time, but nevertheless, he's never won one from a small group, from what I can see. So he probably won't be too confident in his sprint, but I don't know who would be confident out of the front three. I'd have Yates probably fastest down on paper, but he is missing a couple of turns at the moment. I'm wondering if he is thinking about Matteo Trentin behind, but that gap continues to go up.
1 minute 16 seconds as Trentin waits patiently to see if he's going to be towed back to the front group. Simon Yates looking to complete the set. He has a stage win in the Vuelta. He has stage wins in the Giro d'Italia. He is looking for one in the Tour de France for the first time.
Yes, and as Dan said, starting to miss turns. I think that's what Yates have got to do. He's got to make the other ones nervous, because play that card, say Trentin is coming back, he's on the way, and I'm not going to do too much of the pulling here, and just make the rest nervous. And it's always a good way to do it. And during that time as well, you can just miss a turn and spare a little bit of energy. So why not try that tactic?
We've got our own tactic coming off in the breakaway afterwards. Remind you that Alberto Contador will be joining Dan Lloyd and Ola Chenouille alongside later on the roof of our studio. Remember, hashtag the breakaway for any questions. And you'll be able to watch that on Eurosport and, of course, live on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. Andre Amador starts to ride for Movistar.
Well, nothing new. We often see that with Movistar when back in the time Sky, now Ineos, of course, when they're controlling on the front, we often see that the Movistar riders and not maybe happy with the pace being going fast enough, or they like to show as well that we can ride in the front of the peloton. It's nothing new in the Tour de France, and we'll see a lot more of that, because they try and use the team tactics, push riders up the road. I think we will see some of that in the days to come.
There might be a threat to their team classification lead at the front.
We can laugh about that, but they do ride for that reason. It's hugely important to Movistar, apparently, the team classification. It's a place on the podium.
Yes, well, the Spanish teams, going back for donkey years, they always took the team classification serious, but of more recent times, it's not as important for some of the teams, but certainly Movistar, they have been, very interested in that. But yeah, they're probably thinking about that classification, but it's very early days to start thinking about it, because there's so much more difficult days to come. But still, yeah, as Dan said, they're probably just a little bit concerned to lose a bit of time.
They want those yellow helmets and numbers for tomorrow. And joking aside, 37 consecutive appearances at the Tour de France for Movistar, as we see Mike Turnison coming back to the peloton. And in those 37 appearances, they have won it on 5 occasions, the team classification. Very recently too. 7 overall victories in the individual during that time. Let's not forget 5 of them coming from Miguel Indurain. This is the last little bit of climbing in today's stage. Michael Matthews, the latest to be reabsorbed. Well, he tried again. got Nicholas Roach up the road and worked for him. There were 4 riders from Sunweb in the break. And unless it comes back together, it's going to be another day without success for Team Sunweb. At the front, it's still Mühlberger who's wearing the green and yellow. The green and the white, pardon me, with the black shirts. The yellow and the black is on the back of Simon Yates, the Englishman. Turquoise jersey for the team from Kazakhstan is Peyo Bilbao. 17 kilometers to go. 8 minutes 27. That's the back to the yellow jersey. Julien Alaphilippe should keep his yellow jersey today. And it will be all down to the time trial tomorrow. He'll start having, unless anything changes on this descent, 1 minute and 12 seconds to Geraint Thomas, 1 minute and 16 seconds to Egan Bernal, and it is an opportunity to try and go out there and maybe take the yellow jersey. We'll see. Amador. Look how narrow these roads are as well. Still into that headwind. Mühlberger, who has a good sprint on him. Remember, he won that stage in the Bink Bank Tour as well. There's 3 wins in his career. A lot of Peyo Bilbao's success has come this year, actually. Certainly in the last 2 years, more than half of his career victories have turned up. He's won in the Giro, at the Dauphiné. Can he do it at the Tour de France?
Has he ever won a stage of the Vuelta?
Not yet.
Not about to complete his collection then. No. As you said, Simon Yates can, and it would be the 3rd rider to do it at this particular race. Elia Viviani completing his collection in the first week, and so too did Caleb Ewan just yesterday.
Anybody new to cycling, what we mean by that is winning a stage at each of the big 3-week tours, each of the Grand Tours, which are the Giro d'Italia, the Tour of Italy, the Tour de France, and the Tour of Spain, which is the Vuelta a España. 15 kilometers remain. Well, in this group, it should remain calm. The gap we really want to see is that between the front 3 riders and the group chasing behind. At the last count, it was not coming down.
Well, given the team cars, it must still be a minute, mustn't it? And they are fully committed. I did think Yates was starting to stop doing some turns, but he has been on the front ever since.
Eight minutes 35 back to the yellow jersey group. It was 1 minute and 15 seconds the last time we checked to the next group chasing on the road. It's Bilbao at the front. 29 years of age from Guernica in the Basque Country. We're seeing 1:16 at the moment. Back to Schachmann, Frank, Galopin, Turns, Trentin, Powles, Feline and Roach. We have British and Irish interest. The Englishman, Yates, he's in this front group. And the Irishman, Roach, behind at just over a minute. It's still very much wait and see now. Now this is that group, and what's happening in it? Tactically, you can see Turns taking a turn. And the couple of riders too from Azure des Allem Mondial both riding. Not what we suggested maybe that one was committing, as Yates accelerates at the front. Mühlberger coming through. They really are still riding hard in this group.
Well, they are, and I don't see it coming back with the way that they're riding, and especially when you saw the dynamic of the group behind. It's always difficult, isn't it, when there are a couple of riders sat on the back. They've got every right to, Matteo Trentin and Schachmann from Bora Hansgrohe, because they've got a rider each up the road by over a minute at the moment, but that's part of what is causing that chase to halt ever so slightly, ever so often behind, and the gap to continue to go up, because we've got 3 committed riders here. How long for is the question. When will they going to start looking at each other towards the end and potentially attacking each other? It's going to be a very interesting sprint between the 3 of them.
It's going at a real rate of knots, this, Sean. How do you see it playing out now? Any change from what we saw at the top of the climb?
No, it seems to be holding on, that 1:15 at the moment, and the 3 we can see here riding quite well together. They seem to be contributing pretty equal, all 3. Will they start to, play about a bit and start looking at each other? But if you get into that final number of kilometres and they have a minute in advantage, it's very difficult to see the chasing group coming back. And the problem is with the chasing group, when you have teammates, as Dan said, the other riders, they're already, you know, being in difficulty on the climb. Everybody is starting to suffer at this stage, and yeah, a minute and 15 is a big ask for them to close down now as we go to 12 kilometres to go. So it looks like that is going to be between the three men we have here for the stage win here today.
Dan Lloyd's gone off to touch up his makeup for his appearance with Alberto Contador and Ola Shenoy on tonight's breakaway, which you can get involved with by hashtagging any tweet The Breakaway. Follows the conclusion of this stage. And will they have an English winner to celebrate here? Simon Yates for Mitchelton Scott. We were saying just the other day, it had been 3 years since Mitchelton Scott won a stage at the Tour de France. They could have 2 wins in 3 days.
Yes, well, that would be it would be an amazing thing if they get the stage here today, because you know, when you get one stage, you're going to be saying, well, you know, this is a really good tour, and then you can, you know, pull off another one, and that would be just make it, you know, a great race for them. And of course, yeah, it's not a team who only have riders who should go for a stage victory. They have somebody for the general classification as well. So yeah, if he can do it today here, well then Simon Yates, he will make the team very happy, and will take a lot of pressure off it to just relax everybody that bit more again.
Might change their approach for the better, of course. They've already got that monkey off the back, if you like, with the first stage win. Darrell Impey taking it, the first South African stage since 2007 when he did. And they have a chance maybe for Simon Yates to get what he came for, and then maybe dedicate his service to that of his brother. Calmerjan and Simon about to be caught. Remember, 40 riders were in the breakaway at the start after a lightning-fast beginning to stage 12 of this Tour de France. We began in Toulouse, heading to Bagnères de Bigorre, where we will reach in 10 kilometres' time. We've been racing for 199 kilometres. It's been a long day, and there's going to be a deserved win at the end of it.
Yes, and we can see the peloton just coming through, 20 kilometres to go. Our leaders up front are just as coming to the 10 kilometres to go, so that tells you the difference here, and the gap is growing out, and nothing happening in the main peloton. They're using it as just a day, take it easy. The general classification men just concentrate on tomorrow, spare all your energy for tomorrow, and yeah, it's looking that it's going to be a three-man sprint for the stage here.
Who's it going to be? 3 up between Mühlberger, Bilbao and Yates. The latter two are already Grand Tour stage winners. None of the 3 have won stages at the Tour de France, however. Remember, there's been some classic names, haven't there, winning here. We talked about Gemignani in Bagnères de Bigorre all the way back in 1952. There was the disgraced Ricoeur in 2008. The latest winner, Dan Martin. If it's to be another Irish win, this needs to change. Sean, it's not coming back this now, is it? 1 minute 37. Unless something happens up the front, it's going to be between the top 3.
Yes, I think it's guaranteed we're going to see the sprint with the 3 riders. Will they start attacking each other? You know, they will be made aware of the gap is growing out to almost 1 minute and 40. So some of the riders could, want to just get carried along here, but everyone here of the 3 are working very well together, and it has to be between the 3. The question you ask here, some of the riders that we've up in front, do they know the run-in? Because when you get to the 3 kilometres to go, there are some tight corners there. It goes just after the 3 kilometres, it goes right, then it goes left, and then at 750 metres to go, it's a very, very tight one, a dog leg where they turn back on themselves, and just before the finish, 200 metres to go, there's another left-hander. The riders maybe not expecting to be up here in the end today, not reading it. Of course, the Directeur Sportif will try and give you, an idea of what it's like. But when you're going downhill like this, it's sometimes difficult to get the message over your earpiece from the radio, from your Directeur Sportif. So hopefully that's they all 3. They shouldn't be finishing at a huge fast rate. But again, to know this final corner with 200 metres to go, that could be important. If you get it wrong there, well, then it could be the difference of not getting the stage victory.
And that's going to come from the sports directors in their ears, isn't it? They're going to get that information.
Yes.
7.3 kilometres to go. Now, Sean, you alerted me to a lovely story this morning, and we're retracing the steps of the first ever yellow jersey, aren't we, I gather? Because I mentioned Eugène Christophe's name earlier in the day when Julien Alaphilippe equalled his number of yellow jerseys, pulling it on for the 7th time at the start of the day's stage. It looks as though he's going to overtake Eugène Christophe the first wearer of the yellow jersey in 1919, when he gets his 8th day at the end of today, providing there's no problem behind. But we're coming past quite a unique point. Is it in Compon?
Yes, Sainte-Marie de Campagne, and we went through there just a little bit further back. Of course, it was 14 kilometres from the finish, so we've been through that point. And that was where, the famous one where Christophe, he broke his fox, he went to a forge, and of course you're not allowed any aid from anybody, but there was a young boy there, and he was working the bellistic, which was in the old forge at the time, and for that reason he got a fine, or I'm not exactly sure what there's a lot of history to it, and that's just 14 kilometres for the finish here.
Yeah, no communiques with all the fines, the Swiss francs and the deductions in seconds back in those days. 6 kilometres from the finish, though, in 2019. Not quite as dramatic as it was then on that day, but 9 minutes and 12 for these three riders here. Mühlberger for Bora Hansgrohe. They already had their success, remember, through Peter Sagan. He's been in dominant mood today, and if he can pull it off, it would have been the perfect breakaway for Bora Hansgrohe. They went out, took those 20 points in the intermediate sprint with a ferocious dart to the line from Peter Sagan. He's increased his lead in that competition, and one of the men he was riding for has an opportunity for the finale. Mühlberger looking for his first ever Grand Tour success. He's only ever taken one stage win in a World Tour race. That was in the Big Bank Tour last year. Austrian rider in the centre of that trio now, just hitting the front with the green and white on for the German team. And we know that Astana are always active in the Grand Tours, but this is an opportunity to pick up win number 1 of the Tour de France this year for them. They're 5 Ks from the line, and they've got plenty of time to play with now.